Ji, my name is Ahmer Bilal Soofi. I am a practicing lawyer and my interest has been in public international law. I also served as a federal law minister, and apart from that I advised OIC on various issues relating to interpretation of the freedom of speech in terms of Article 18, 19, 20 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And it is during those advisory sessions at the OIC and in Geneva that I developed interest in the Quranic studies and its inherent link with international law, and how the Quran legal framework and the Quranic treaty law principles in the Quran are relatable to the modern international law. So once I started doing work on that, gradually over a period of time, it shaped up into identifying a unique architecture of the Quran which is legal in nature. And within that legal architecture of the Quran, I was able to identify several covenants that Allah has with individuals. And in this book, I have identified a set of those covenants which are very clearly ascertainable from the bare reading of the Quran and even from its own structure. So there are, in the English version of the Quranic Covenants, which is the book that is being introduced here, there are two sets of covenants that I have talked about. One set of covenants are those that Allah Ta'ala offers each one of us, and then they are covenants in the Quran, within the text of the Quran. And then there is a set of covenants that have been identified where I say they are covenants under the Quran. Now those covenants under the Quran means those covenants or agreements in the worldly affairs that we do and execute and participate in, which are covered in the definition of the word misaq and akud in the Quran, which clearly says that you have to uphold all agreements and commitments that you do at a worldly stage. So what are those commitments? In this book, I identify those commitments includes everyday commercial agreements that we do, whether it's a buying and selling agreement, whether an installment agreement, whether it's a purchase of vehicle agreement, whether it's sale of a house, lease deed, employment letter, any transaction, any commercial transaction that we do as a Muslim, Allah Ta'ala oversees it. So certain jurists have said that Allah Ta'ala becomes a party. It's a trilateral contract between Allah, the person who is, and the people who are doing that as a commercial entity. So that is one set of agreements that you have under the Quran. The second set of agreements is international treaties and agreements. So whenever you do an international commitment or a convention is signed or a treaty is signed, there is an obligation pursuant to Quran as a believer state to implement it properly in pith and substance. And that's the central theme behind it, that you have to implement all agreements as a state level that you enter into. So it creates a broad obligation in relation to all treaties. There are thousands of treaties that a state like Pakistan has signed and any state has signed. The third category of the covenants or akud or misaq under the Quran include legislative covenants or laws of the state, because every law under the definition of political science is a social contract with the state. So the name of law or the academic nomenclature of every statute is that it is a contract with the state, and that stands covered in the definition of misaq or in the definition of akud. So that needs to be honored as well as a citizen. All laws of the state, whether they are relating to regulating the matter of the housing schemes or whether relating to land, whether relating to our rights, needs to be upheld. Obviously, if they are oppressive in nature, then you stand out of that and you can challenge those laws. But generally, that's the sentiment that you have to. So in other words, a part of the study also looks at that whatever has been revealed has been broadly legislated as well in the modern law. These three areas mean that our entire life is linked with the Quranic framework. Our life as a commercial person, our life of day-to-day commitments, even oral agreements, we are bound by and we are answerable for that. So whether it is international treaties, whether it is domestic law, whether it is private contracts of everyday life, they all stand interconnected, and that is what this book helps you to understand much more clearly and much more vividly, that how there is an intersection between the domestic law, international law, and the divine law that we believe in as Muslims. For the non-Muslims, it will continue to be a very interesting study, because they can look at that Islam is basically a responsible religion. And Muttaqi's definition, if you look at it very carefully, means someone who is who is upholding its commitment and agreements as well, in addition to other recognized areas that he needs to fulfill. This book will help people understand the Quran from a different lens, which is a legal lens, and that will they'll begin to relate their everyday issues with Islam, with Quran much more clearly and much more comfortably, and they will be able to understand it far better. So I believe that this will be helpful to law students, it could be helpful to ordinary people, it could be helpful to scholars, and it could be helpful even to young people of any age and group that they wish to take a look at Quran from a fresh and a new perspective, which is a more contemporary perspective.